Hello and welcome. It's Dr. Pedram Shojai here with a new friend of mine who I had the pleasure of hanging out with this year at an event. I heard her name. She's got an amazing bio, just heard of her, around, and we got a chance to actually hang out. And it was true. There's a lot of fake people in this space, and she's not one of them. She's a delightful human being. Mary Morrissey, author of two best-selling books, No Less Than Greatness and Building Your Field of Dreams, which became a PBS special. She's a fan favorite of a lot of people in my industry. She has live events and programs, and she's basically worked with millions of people worldwide to achieve new heights in meaning, purpose, aliveness, and authentic success. Welcome, Mary. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we have a lot in common. We're interested in helping people, right? You have been really instrumental in being on the forefront of helping spiritual people who are on the path of awakening, really get clear with money and abundance. I think there's a lot of judgment there. There's a lot of challenges. In particular, I grew up in a community, Southern California, where either you're for money or against money, right? And turns out every one of us has to spend money on rent and mortgage. So would love to kind of tease that out with you a little bit, because you, I think, have one of the best narratives, the best voice in that space.
Thank you. Yeah, you can't not have a relationship with money and be in a human experience in the Western world. I mean, it's part of our experience. And the question is, what is my relationship with money? I struggled in my particularly, I didn't really realize we were struggling as I grew up. And my family was always saying, we were wealthy. My parents were wealthy in love. We don't have much money, but we're wealthy in love. It would be years into my adulthood when I realized that I adopted a paradigm that it was a choice. You either had love or money. I was in my middle 20s. I just finished getting my master's degree in counseling psychology, and I was now in a seminary. And I went to hear a lecture from a man who was speaking. He was filling Lincoln Hall once a week. This is in the early 70s. He named Raymond Charles Barker. And about 3,000 of us came to hear this guy speak, and I was 1,000 people deep. I'd gotten there early, but I still was that far in the depths of, I had my notebook ready to take notes, because I knew that he understood how to unlock some of the things that we can all say we live in a sea of abundance, that there's abundance everywhere, but my ability to translate that, particularly into the field of my work, I was struggling in. So I was always struggling with money. And I wanted to hear what he had to say. So he came onto the stage, 80-something, all white hair, black suit. He walks out on the stage and looks at all 3,000 of us. It seemed like a long time, just looked at us. And then he reached in, pulled out his wallet, and pulled out a big stack of money, and then fanned it out and held it up for all of us to see. And he said, this is money. This is money. I love money. I just love money. And then he brought the money and he went, and I just felt mortified. I thought, I've come 1,000 miles to hear this guy speak. I had judgment and repulsion feelings. And then I thought, he's not even spiritual. This guy's not even spiritual. And then he put the money back and he says, so I don't want you to raise any hands, but I want to ask you some questions now. When you saw what I just did just remind yourself what you were feeling inside. Did you feel some repulsion? Did you have some criticism? Did you even think this guy's not spiritual? And I felt like he had just reached inside me. And he says, so let me tell you something. Money heard you. Why would money want to come where it's not revered, where it's not honored, where it's not loved? And let me make one more suggestion to you. Instead of doing what I just did, if I had walked out on the stage with this darling little boy in my hand, and I pick up this darling little boy and I hold him for all of you to see. And I say, this is my grandson. I love my grandson. I just love my grandson. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Not one of you would have had repulsion or criticism or thought I'm not spiritual, because you've been programmed to believe it's okay to love a grandchild and it's not okay to love the symbol of your own freedom. What you love about money is the symbol for your freedom to give what you really want to give, make the difference you want to make, contribute to what matters. It's a symbol of freedom. And if you don't love that kind of freedom, you're going to always have less of it than you want. And that I realized I had some hidden blocks in me that I didn't even know were there. I said I wanted to be able to do the things I wanted to do because I believed in them and thought they would make contributions. but I had inner blocks that were keeping me, and I didn't even know I had them.
So money is the root of all evil, right? Money is, rich people have money and they don't have ethics. I mean, all these weird memes that we grow up with, right? That put a judgment, put that energy on money, and then we repel it.
Yeah,
So
and somehow it's more spiritual to not have it. We've got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have
Absolutely. I mean, look, I was an ascetic monk. We didn't touch money, right? Yeah. And so having to develop a relationship with money coming into the world was a rocky road, right? It was a weird reentry because we're taught to judge money. So if it's an essential part of our freedom, how did you start to disentangle yourself from all those emotions and all that judgment and the repulsion of it?
Well, I began to notice that the energy of money was really about flow, that you can't get to abundance. We're in abundance. What I found I needed to learn to do was come from abundance. And one of the things that I began to look at the ways that I thought and some of the patterns I had, one of which was I wanted to get more successful. I wanted to get a bigger place to operate my business from. I wanted to get more people to, to have what it was that I was offering because I knew it would help them. But it was really a get energy versus a give energy. And get is all about lack. You're coming from a sense of lack because you're wanting to get. And I even thought about the way at that time, this is, in the late 70s, I would go into networking events. This was in the early real days of the formation of what today we call personal development movement. Wayne Dyer, Les Brown, and I were all being mentored by the same man. And he was really helping us look at the way our inner relationship actually dictated the outer relationship or outer results we were having. In the same way, he used the example then, and it still holds up, that your television, the pictures you're seeing on the screen are an exact match to the frequency you're tuned to. If you want the pictures to change, you don't go to the television screen. You don't sit in front of it and cross your legs and meditate and hope it's going to change. You change the frequency and the pictures change. Quick and easy on a television, not so long, or not so quick and easy in a human system. But as we begin to change the frequency from get to give, there's a different way the energy moves. And it actually, first place it moves is inside us. We feel better. And when we feel better, we begin to see things differently. So that was one of the things that shifted.
What's interesting is so many people come to this work when their back's against the wall, right? It's, I need to get because my rent is due tomorrow. And you know what? I never really had faith in God, but God, if you're there right now, I need that help right now, right? And it's just like, the pressure cooker of needing to get and being desperate. It's really hard to transition to that place of give, isn't it? Right? We're not trained that way.
No, we're not trained that way. But some of the simple, there was a wonderful book written in 1910 by a man named Wallace Wattles. I'm sure you've come into it, Pedram. It's called The Science of Getting Rich. And it's a very simple little book, but one of the things he talks about in there is he calls it the thinking stuff, but today, in physics, we'd call it some call it string theory. It's just like this invisible energy that's everywhere present, sitting at superposition, ready to form itself into patterns that are congruent with the frequencies we're coming from. And we all have a major dominant frequency that is the way we think of ourselves and how life works. And it reproduces itself on the screen of our life as the patterns of our circumstances, situations, and conditions. And if we want to change those, you don't go to the screen of a movie to change what you're seeing. You go to the projection booth. And I had to begin to practice. At first, I had to be convinced that if I practiced being a person of increase instead of a person of getting, that it was a good thing. I could think of it conceptually, but the practice of it was and this is where it came from, that little book where he said, if you get on the frequency of increase where you're sincerely interested about every transaction you're in, leaving the other person with increase, whether it's an increase of a better feeling or an increase of appreciation or increase that in the path or the wake of your living, that you're leaving increase with authentic desire to help those people in the grocery store clerk. That's not just a machine taking your money and transacting, that's a person.
Hmm.
and leaving increase everywhere you go. He said, you will never have to worry about your own increase when you're on the frequency of increase. Increase follows increase, and
Hmm.
lack follows lack, because they're on the same frequency.
That's great.
Yeah, so that helped me.
That's great. So, in your experience, what do you think's holding people back from getting this, from really experiencing true abundance and living in that, walking up to the projector booth?
It's an awareness.
Yeah.
It's not the good people.
Yeah.
We grew up in a world where almost all of us were trained to live a circumstance driven life, to look for circumstances to determine what we can be, where we can go, what we can do. And when my circumstances tell me I can, and not know how to transform those circumstances from the place of coming from what it is that you would really love in your life. My work over the last 40 plus years of my teaching has been mainly in what I've called dream building, not just dreaming. Lots of people have great visions, but understanding the art and the science of transformation. The art is in the visioning, the science is in the vibration, and how you generate a vision of what you would really love. So if someone would love more of this, to have a real picture of it in your mind, and then learning how to come from that frequency instead of trying to get to it. You can never get to the dream, you have to come from it.
Mm-hmm.
With abundance.
Super counterintuitive, right? Like we are in a place of lack trying to get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on a lack frequency. Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. So what's a common block that you see in people all the time? I mean, I've been around a lot of people kind of clicking their heels, trying to, wish for things and the law of attraction and all that. And a lot of them are left disappointed. So where are they getting stuck?
Well, as I mentioned, one of those is coming from a get focus instead of a give focus. Another one is hidden money stories. I mentioned the one that I grew up in, that you can have love or money. Most of us, got the money doesn't grow on trees. The way to have more, you got to work harder. In order to have more, you have to work harder, which actually is a push energy rather than a flow energy. And it's not really a long-lasting answer to having success. Those are some of them. I just would like just a couple minutes to say, this didn't just drop in on me. I wasn't born knowing this. My first real experience with transformation, I wouldn't have even known to call it that. I don't think we've ever talked about my personal story. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, had a high school experience like most young girls dream about. I was class vice president on the drill team, had a lead in the junior play in my junior year of high school. I'm homecoming princess. And at the end of that year, I get pregnant. End of my junior year in high school. My high school boyfriend had come home from college on spring break. I get pregnant, May 1. I tell my mom and dad I'm now pregnant. My mother wept for me as if I had died. In her mind, all her dreams for me were dying. I'd always wanted to be a teacher. I always dreamed of being a school teacher. Now I'm pregnant. High school principal calls me in and says, Mary, if the rumors I'm hearing about you true. This is after we'd had a hasty 10-person wedding. And I said, well, if the rumors are I'm pregnant and married that order, then yes, they're true. And he just put his head in his hands and he says, you have great grades, great honors, but you're not going to be allowed to return here for your senior year. Totally inappropriate for a pregnant girl to get mixed in with the normal girls. This is 1966. We have a place for people like you. It's a high school after dark where you can go to high school and with the pregnant girls, the delinquent boys. And if you want to get a diploma, that's where you'll need to go. So I drove that fall across the river to a place in Portland. I haven't even been allowed to drive in after dark. And as I'm walking up to the school, I'm thinking, all right, every girl here is pregnant or has a baby. Every guy's a delinquent. This is my new student body. I don't know where you were at the beginning of your senior year, or our listener, our viewer was, but this is where I was. My son was born in December of 66. I graduated from Washington Evening High School because even though I saw this as a detour, I didn't give up my dream to be a teacher. And I'm just going to take a little longer now. And I wanted a high school diploma for that purpose. So I get my diploma in May, and in July, I'm in an intensive care ward in a Portland hospital, having been diagnosed with fatal kidney disease. One kidney was totally destroyed with nephritis, the other 50% destruction, active nephritis. And in this time in history, without dialysis and transplant, this is a death sentence. And I was told that if we could get the blood toxin level in my body reduced enough to remove that right kidney, then maybe I would have 6 months to live. And I was terrified. I'm not maybe even going to get to see my son take his first steps. And he and my husband are staying at my parents' house so my mom can watch him while I'm in the hospital. And the night before the surgery to remove that right kidney, a woman walked in my room identifying herself as a chaplain, volunteer chaplain, praying with people who are going to have surgery the next day. Well, the God of my upbringing was not a friendly place to go when you felt like you had really screwed up. So I thought I was just being punished. I got kicked out of my school, I'd lost my friends, and now I was going to lose my life for being a bad girl. It's really the internal mindset I had for what was going on in my life. Why it matters to our viewer is you have an internal mindset, and it's very difficult to see it for yourself. You can see its results in your life clearly, but you can't see the internal piece very easily. So she offered prayer. I was scared. I said, okay. She didn't do anything that looked like prayer. She talked to me. She sat down by the side of my bed and she said, would you be willing to tell me what's been going on in your life the last year or two? Now, this is before we knew anything. This is 1967. We did not have the mind-body clinics at the various universities, certainly not Harvard. We didn't understand the mind-body connection. We didn't know anything about how our thoughts actually impact our chemistry. So she sat by my bed, what's been going on in your life the last year or two? And then she looked at me and she said, Mary, everything's created twice. I had no idea what she was talking about. She said, you actually know this. In fact, everybody knows this. Almost nobody knows the power of knowing this. The bed you're laying on, the nightgown you're wearing, the sheet covering you, the walls, the ceiling, the floors, all this machinery you're hooked up to. First, it had to be a thought before it could be a thing. And then she said, you know that if you think embarrassing thoughts, your cheeks get red. You know, if you think scary enough thoughts, your heart beats faster. I hear how much you love your little boy, but I also hear how much you've been hating yourself. You feel like you shamed yourself, you shamed your school, you shamed your family. And now that you're thinking about how everything is created twice, could it be possible that all that self-loathing, that toxic thinking, could have something to do with the toxicity that's rampaging your body and threatening your very life? Nobody I knew thought that way. And then she said, so this was like, I felt like I was a bit in shell shock that I'm actually, somewhat related to this disease that's happening. And then she said, so if you can think one thought, you can think another thought. And then she gave me a pattern. She said, if you don't change what you're thinking, even when they remove that kidney, your thoughts are going to keep doing the same thing. And she asked me if I could believe that in the infinite energy, in the infinite, there had to be one chance where I could get completely well. Could I believe that's possible? There's nobody who had said there was even one chance. Nobody had come to me saying there was one chance. They were all just so sorry that this disease was going to take its course with me. And she said, could you believe there's one possibility? This before Sheldrake, and before we did unified field theory, before David Bohm, before Talbot out of Stanford wrote Holographic Universe, or the things that you studied, of course, which are thousands of years old, I just didn't have access to. So nobody I knew thought this way. Mm-hmm. And then she said, could you believe there's a possibility? I said, well, I don't know if it's probable, but maybe it's possible, because I could tell she believed it. I didn't believe it, but I could tell she believed it. And she said, that's all we need. One corner of your mind open to the possibility. Let's work with that. And then she gave me a pattern of thinking to follow, which is what I've also used with helping other people transform their results as well. And the pattern she gave me was, if you could live, Mary, what would you do with your life? Because she knew that wanting to be healthy was not a great enough goal. Right. We all want to be healthy, but we want to be healthy for something, for the thing we want to create, for the family we want to raise, for the book we want to write, for the business we want to build, for the earth we want to save, for something. And so she said, if you could live, what would you do with your life? I would raise my little boy and I would become a teacher. That was the best I knew. I'm, just barely 18 at this point. And she says, all right, so your thoughts build highways, and then your thoughts want to go down the same well-worn highways of thinking. So after the surgery and after the pain subsides, your thoughts are going to want to go down those same well-worn self-loathing highways. I want you to notice what you're thinking. I didn't even know that I had a noticer, Pedram, that I could notice. And she said, notice what you're thinking. And the moment you notice yourself thinking a self-loathing thought, we're going to sweep up, we're going to imagine, she didn't call it a visualization in those days, imagination, she said, we're going to sweep up all the toxicity that's in your body. We're going to place it in that one kidney. imaginally. Place it in that one kidney that's going to get removed tomorrow. And when it gets removed, the toxicity is gone from you. Imagine that. And then when you think a self-loathing thought, you say, nope, you interrupt that thought. Say, no, that left with the kidney. And then immediately imagine you're walking up some steps into a school. You got a little boy's hand in your hand. Feel the warmth of his hand. He's 5 years old. You're walking into the school. There's a kindergarten teacher. Your boy is going into kindergarten. You're so happy to be there. And he's all happy to get to go to kindergarten, and you're seeing this. Then you hear the click, click, click of your heels around the corner, and there's your classroom, and you're a teacher. Then fast forward in your mind, and you're in a big stadium or auditorium, and there are all these caps and gowns down there, and you hear your son's name. He walks across the stage, gets his diploma, holds it up. You're in the stands cheering for him and feeling so proud and happy for him, and how grateful for the many years of impact and influence to help him have this moment in his life. And then fast forward, and then you're sitting in the front row of a wedding, and your son's marrying the love of his life, and you're the mother of the groom. And how happy you are for him, how grateful you are to be there and enjoying this. And she said, just keep repeating that. And she left. And I'm sure looking back, I was an unconscious, what we would today call an unconscious competent. I must have just done what she told me to do. I don't remember thinking about it or thinking, oh, I'm supposed to do this. But after a couple of weeks, well, the doctors had told my parents at the time and my husband that one kidney was destroyed. They pulled it, the other kidney, they could see it had 50% destruction, atrophy, and they didn't know how much time I'd have. But after 2 weeks, my numbers had had stopped going down and were just stable. They stabilized. And so they said, well, maybe you're going to have a little more time than we thought. And I went home in an ambulance to my parents' house. I had to go to the doctor several times a week to check numbers. But my numbers not only stabilized, they started slightly improving and improving and improving. And after 4.5 or 5 months, I'm sitting in a room with the doctors, the specialist, the surgeon, and they're scratching their heads saying, we have no science for why that one kidney, and we saw it, what it looked like, is functioning as a fully functioning kidney. We have no science for this. We don't know how long this will last. We're going to write medical anomaly on your chart. You come in once a month now instead of every week, and that went to every 3 months and every 6 months and once a year, and I haven't gone back. So what I know is she helped me change the vibration, and the dis-ease didn't exist on the vibration that I moved to. It existed on the vibration of self-loathing and much destructive thinking inside of me. So it's not just with health, it's with money, it's with all the aspects of our lives. We do have thinking patterns, and those create emotional responses in us and alter our perception and our ability to make choices. And so as we begin to learn to come from a vision, what good thing would you do with the money? One of the 8 spiritual secrets is to have a vision for the good things you would love to do. I've had clients who were finally able to buy their mother, who never had a house, her first house. She lived in little apartments or rented places her whole life. And one of their drivers was they wanted not only to have the things they wanted to have and do the things for their family, but they wanted to have the kind of wealth that would enable them to buy their mother, her very first house. And the reward of that, or contribute to causes, or I know so many good things that you do in the world because you've allowed money and wealth to move through your good work and the difference you make. And that's part of what one of the secrets is, to have something that's bigger than you, that is part of the purpose for which you're willing to allow yourself to experience abundance so that you can give more good than you're able to do on your own.
Yeah, I only ever wanted money for money's sake because it was due, but I wanted to make a bunch of impact in the world. And once I connected the two and realized that I needed that energy to flow through me to manifest all the things that I wanted seen in the world, then all the trip ups started to disappear. Right. Yeah. Yep. How hard was it for you at first? Especially, you're suspended disbelief. You're on your back. You're not feeling well, and they told you you're dying, right? So, you don't have much to lose. But how hard was it to really see it and feel it and hold it in your vision at first? And a lot of people have a hard time with the visualization. They're like, this isn't working, right?
Well, of course, perhaps one of the things she did for me that I haven't quite identified till you asked this question is it wasn't immediate. It was 5 years. It was 18 years. It was, we didn't know, of course, how old we were predicting he'd go to kindergarten at 5. He'd graduated 18, whatever year he got married. So it was really a life vision. And all I know is that as I began to hold those things in mind, it was a few weeks, it was well before we sat with the doctors. We were coming home from the urologist having the test, and my head's on the back of the seat. I can't hold my head up all the time I'm gone to go to that appointment. And we were passing the community college, and I asked my mother, I didn't have the energy to go in and get a catalog. I asked if she would just stop, go in and get a catalog, so I could just thumb through the classes that I might be able to take if I did get well. And that was a baby step, but I'm a firm believer in baby steps. Over the years of helping clients, the baby steps will take you all the way up Mount Everest if you just keep taking them. And so that was something I could do. I could lay in bed and imagine taking I wanted to take a psychology class, just things that mattered to me. So there's always something you can do with what you have. We get so focused on what we can't do and what we don't have that we take our eye off. There's not one of us who can't move to a greater expression of increase today. If we decide, if we want more increase in our lives in all the areas that matter to us, we can practice being more of a person of increase with sincere compliments, with acknowledgments, with sending notes. I mean, there's just things we can do that leave impressions of increase. Like you take Play-Doh and you put your, it leaves an impression what your energy is. And I've seen over the years, the clients I've worked with, that when you put your focus on being increased, making sure that in the wake of your own living, the places you've been, the people you're with, there's a feeling of increase because you've been there. You don't have to worry about the increase in your own life.
I love that. I love that. I know that you have a meditation that you're going to offer our audience, because it's one thing to say, okay, cool, I get that. It's another thing to have a tool to walk through. So tell us about that. And I'm very thankful that you're doing this, by the way.
I created it. It's called the Abundance Meditation. And I mean, like we said, it's one thing to cognitively get it, but where we really get it is in our subconscious. It changes our orientation, our deep seated feeling where that occurs. So the great news about having this kind of a meditation, and it's backed up by 40 years of study on my part, that if you just listen to it, and you can listen to it, it's short, you can listen to it every day for 30 days, you're going to begin to notice your thinking is shifting and your feeling, your peace has expanded and your stress is dialed down, and it just will help you not only know that you can have abundance, but that you're actually in abundance, and it comes from the inside out. So I know it helps people who use it. So I give it as a wonderful free gift. I hope you're
love it. It's at bravethinkinginstitute.com/meditation for well, like WELL, well.org. And we'll put a link to it there. Mary, I'm just delighted to have met you. You do such great work, and you've helped a lot of my friends. You've helped a lot of people I know. Just your attitude, it's pervasive. It's like you could just tell you're living what you're talking about. That's wonderful.
Pedram, I want to say to you, I am so grateful to have met you and to be more and more discovering the great work you're doing in the world, the difference it's making. And yes, you have helped a lot of my friends too. So I'm glad now you and I have connected.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Well, that's it, right? Spirit of giving. So yeah, let's just keep making the world better and good things happen. And so grace is, there's a saying in my language in Farsi that says, from you action, from God grace, right? Like don't just pray to get, just keep doing things and be in the flow of that. And all of a sudden, I don't know, it just works out.
I love that. From you action, from God grace. Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Mary, such a pleasure. Thank you so much. I'll put links to your free gift for our audience, and always wishing you the best. Thank you so much.